My name is MuftiMenk, and I welcome you to this channel, a peaceful sanctuary for reminders that touch the heart and guide the soul. Here, we learn that true kindness must have wisdom, for Islam teaches us to help in righteousness, not in sin. We discover why not everyone deserves your hand of help, because generosity without boundaries can harm you. We remind ourselves that your family comes first, for charity begins at home, and Allah loves when you care for those under your protection. We speak of the danger of empowering oppressors, and why wisdom is greater than blind generosity, and most importantly, we learn to guard our hearts from burnout and guilt, remembering that Allah looks at intention, not quantity. Subscribe, like, and share these reminders so together we may grow in wisdom, balance, and mercy. True kindness must have wisdom. Kindness on its own, without thought, without reflection, without wisdom, can sometimes cause more harm than good. Allah has not commanded us to give blindly, nor has He asked us to open every door of generosity without considering where that generosity will lead. Islam is a religion of balance. It calls us to help, to serve, to extend our hand, but it also teaches us to discern, to pause, to ask ourselves, is this act of kindness bringing me closer to Allah, or is it leading me astray? Is it empowering righteousness, or is it feeding sin? Too often, people confuse kindness with weakness. They believe that being kind means never saying no, never setting limits, never questioning who it is they are helping. But Allah reminds us in the Quran, cooperate with one another in righteousness and piety, but do not cooperate in sin and aggression. This verse alone shows us that kindness without wisdom is not a virtue, it is a mistake. If you help someone commit injustice, you have not been kind, you have participated in their wrongdoing. If you give without wisdom, you may not be helping them at all. You may be fueling their destruction. Think of the person who enables another to continue in their addiction, giving money while knowing it will be wasted in harm. Is that kindness? Think of the one who covers up the oppression of another, excusing their behavior in the name of mercy. Is that kindness? This is not what Allah asks of us. Islam calls us to kindness with insight, kindness that uplifts, not kindness that imprisons, kindness that heals, not kindness that deepens wounds. True kindness is when you give in the right place, at the right time, with the right intention. It is when you extend your hand, not to empower an oppressor, but to lift the oppressed. It is when you protect your family and your deen while also serving your community. It is when you recognize that every act of giving must be aligned with Allah's guidance. For what use is charity if it becomes a tool for sin? What use is generosity if it strengthens the hands of those who harm? And sometimes wisdom means saying no. Sometimes the most merciful thing you can do for someone is to refuse them what they are asking for, because by denying them in the moment, you protect them from greater harm later. Parents know this well. You do not give your child everything they ask for, because not everything they desire is good for them. In the same way, Allah has taught us to give where goodness grows, not where destruction multiplies. Do not let guilt deceive you. Some people will try to manipulate your kindness, to make you feel that if you do not give, you are hard-hearted, that if you do not help, you are cruel. But remember, Allah sees your intention. He knows whether your refusal is arrogance or wisdom. He knows if your silence is neglect or mercy. What matters is that you act with a heart connected to Him, with a mind guided by His words, and with wisdom rooted in His deen. The Prophet Muhammad was the most generous of people, yet even he did not give to everyone who asked. He chose carefully, because he knew that generosity without wisdom could destroy rather than build. His kindness had direction. His mercy had boundaries, and his giving always brought people closer to Allah. This is the model we must follow. We live in a world where kindness is often misused. Some will take from you without gratitude, without respect, and without any intention of using that help in the right way. You cannot control how people act, but you can control where you place your trust, your time, your resources, your mercy. Do not allow your kindness to be the fuel of injustice. Do not allow your giving to be the rope by which someone ties themselves to destruction. True kindness means protecting them from harm, even if they dislike you for it. At times, wisdom may ask you to walk away, to protect your heart, to guard your energy. It is not selfishness, it is clarity. You are not meant to carry the burdens of the entire world. You are meant to act where Allah has guided you, to give where He has blessed your hand, and to stop where He has placed a limit. Remember, even worship in Islam has boundaries. Fasting is not forever. Prayer has times. Zakat has conditions. If even acts of worship must have wisdom and balance, then surely our kindness must as well. So let your kindness shine, but let it shine with wisdom. Let it heal, let it lift, let it bring light, but never let it blind you. Do not allow people to misuse your heart. Protect your soul, protect your family, protect your faith, and always trust that Allah knows your intention. He is the one who sees your hidden struggle, the one who rewards the sincerity in your giving, the one who knows when your silence is mercy. And when you are unsure, turn back to Him. Pray, make dua, ask Allah for guidance. Ya Allah, guide me to give where it will bring goodness. Protect me from giving where it will bring harm. That dua itself is wisdom, because it places your kindness under His light. Remember, true kindness is not blind. True kindness must have wisdom, and wisdom, when guided by Allah, will never fail you. Not everyone deserves your hand of help, because not every outstretched hand is reaching towards goodness. Some hands are stretched towards you to take, but not to change. Some seek your generosity, not because they are in need of healing, but because they wish to continue in their wrongdoing while leaning on your kindness as a crutch. And if you allow them, they will not only drain your resources, but they will drain your heart. They will leave you exhausted, guilty, and confused about whether your help truly made a difference. This is why Islam teaches us that generosity without discernment can be dangerous, and that not every request deserves to be fulfilled. We must remember that Allah does not only ask us to give, but He asks us to give with wisdom. The Quran reminds us to help one another in righteousness and piety, but not to cooperate in sin and aggression. This means that our help must always be aligned with goodness. If someone comes to you seeking your aid, but you know deep down that your help will only fuel their wrongdoing, then stepping back is not cruelty, it is mercy. You are not abandoning them, you are protecting your intention, and you are protecting them from using your generosity as a weapon against themselves. Consider a person who asks for money, but you know they use it to sustain harmful habits, destroying themselves with what you give. By handing over your wealth, are you truly helping them, or are you enabling their destruction? Consider someone who oppresses others, who mistreats their family, and who seeks your support to strengthen their wrongdoing. If you give blindly, your kindness is no longer a blessing. It becomes a tool for injustice. This is not what Allah loves, and this is not the mercy He has taught us. The truth is, some people misuse generosity. They know your heart is soft, they know your guilt is heavy, and they take advantage of it. They will keep coming back, not with gratitude, but with demands, and the more you give, the less they appreciate. Until one day, you find yourself empty, drained, questioning your worth, questioning whether kindness is even worth it. But the problem is not kindness. The problem is misplaced kindness. When you give where it does not belong, it ceases to be kindness at all. It becomes a burden on your soul, and it brings no benefit to the one who receives. Protect your heart. Protect your intention. Remember that kindness in Islam is not about pleasing people. It is about pleasing Allah. If Allah has told you not to assist in sin, then even if the entire world calls you harsh, even if they accuse you of being cold, your Lord knows the truth. He knows that your refusal was mercy. He knows that your boundaries were righteousness. He knows that your strength to say no was not arrogance, but wisdom. Do not be deceived by appearances. Some people will wear the mask of need, but behind it lies manipulation. Some will make you feel that if you do not help them, you are cruel, you are selfish, you are unkind. But what does Allah say? Does He say to help everyone blindly? No. He says to help in righteousness, to give in goodness, to protect your generosity from being a tool for corruption. So when you withhold your help from someone who misuses it, you are not withholding mercy, you are preserving it. True giving is when your generosity uplifts, when it heals, when it plants a seed of goodness that grows into something beautiful. But when your giving becomes a seed of destruction, it is no longer charity, it is no longer reward, it is no longer mercy. And you, as the giver, will carry the weight of it on your shoulders. This is why Islam reminds us again and again to guard our intention, to give with wisdom, and to never allow our kindness to be misused. Sometimes helping someone means saying no. Sometimes the best way to protect them is to stop feeding the very thing that harms them. It may hurt you to see them struggle, it may break your heart to watch them fall, but perhaps that fall is what will wake them up. Perhaps your refusal will force them to turn back to Allah, to rely on Him instead of relying on people. Sometimes your silence, your boundaries, your refusal, that is the real act of kindness. Do not measure your mercy by how much you give. Measure it by the sincerity of your intention and the wisdom of your action. If you give to someone who misuses your generosity, the world may praise you for being kind, but Allah knows you are only fueling their sin. If you withhold from someone for the sake of Allah, the world may condemn you, but Allah knows you are protecting both yourself and them. And whose judgment matters more, the fleeting opinions of people or the eternal judgment of your Lord? Remember the Prophet Muhammad. He was the most merciful of all mankind, yet he did not grant every request. He gave with wisdom, with purpose, with direction. He helped those whose hearts would be healed, not those who would misuse His mercy. He protected his intention by aligning it with Allah's will, not with the expectations of people. This is the example we must follow. So do not let anyone misuse your generosity. Guard your heart, guard your intention, and give only where it brings goodness. Be kind, but be wise. Be merciful, but be discerning. Because true kindness is not about giving endlessly. It is about giving meaningfully. And the most meaningful giving is that which pleases Allah. Not everyone deserves your hand of help, and sometimes the greatest mercy is in withholding. For Allah knows what your heart intends, and He knows where your kindness truly belongs. Your family comes first in Islam because Allah has entrusted them to you as a responsibility, a trust, and a blessing. Too many people give their time, their energy, and their resources to the world, while their own households remain neglected. They run to help neighbors, acquaintances, and even strangers, yet the ones sitting under their roof feel abandoned. But Allah has commanded us to begin at home, to build foundations of love, mercy, and security within our families before extending our hands outward. If you cannot be a source of peace in your own household, then what peace are you bringing to the world? The Prophet Muhammad reminded us that the best of you are those who are best to their families. He did not say the best are those who give endlessly to everyone else, or those who sacrifice their family for the sake of appearances. He said the best of you are those who treat their families with kindness, compassion, and mercy. This is a direct command, a reminder that true righteousness begins where Allah has placed your closest trust. There is no greater charity than to clothe your children, to feed your parents, to provide for your spouse, to ensure that the people in your household feel loved, supported, and cared for. Sometimes we look far away for opportunities to serve, while forgetting the crying child in our home who only wants our time, forgetting the aging parent who longs for our attention, forgetting the spouse who is exhausted and waiting for our support. It is easy to impress the world, but it takes true sincerity to be consistent in mercy at home. The Quran speaks of family again and again. It commands us to honor our parents, to provide for our dependents, to treat our spouses with love and mercy. Allah describes marriage as a source of tranquility, and children as a source of joy and a trust. Yet so many sacrifice that trust in the name of helping others. If your family is starving while you feed outsiders, where is the justice in that? If your children feel neglected while you are busy serving strangers, where is the mercy in that? True mercy is to prioritize those Allah has made your responsibility. There is wisdom in this order, because if every household took care of its own, no one would be left uncared for. The problem begins when people chase recognition, when they want the world to see their generosity, so they neglect the unseen responsibilities at home. A man may give to the masjid, to the poor, to his friends, yet his wife has no food in the kitchen. A woman may volunteer in every charity, yet her children feel abandoned of love. What good is this charity when it betrays the very foundation Allah commanded you to protect? The Prophet taught that even a morsel of food you place in your spouse's mouth is charity. That means the simplest act of care at home holds the reward of sadaqah. Every meal you prepare for your family, every smile you give them, every word of kindness you speak, it is all counted by Allah as a good deed. You don't need the world's applause. Your greatest reward lies in the small acts of mercy given to those under your roof. Some people carry guilt that if they focus on their family, they are neglecting the world. But Islam does not ask you to choose between family and community. It asks you to prioritize correctly. Your family is your first circle. Once you fulfill their rights, you extend outward to others. But if your first circle collapses, then what strength do you have to hold others? A broken household cannot build a strong community. That is why Islam places family at the core of society. Think about it. When the Quran commands us to pray, it also tells us to instruct our families to pray. When it speaks of provision, it tells us to spend on those under our care. When it speaks of guidance, it reminds us to save ourselves and our families from the fire. This is the true order. Protect your home, then extend outward. Neglecting the household while trying to please others is not righteousness. It is imbalance. Sometimes people may criticize you for choosing your family first. They may say you are selfish, that you should give more to others. But remember, Allah is the one who commanded you to protect your household first. You do not owe the world your sacrifice at the expense of your family. You owe your family your protection, your time, your provision, and your love. And when you fulfill that, Allah opens the doors of blessing for you to serve others without guilt, without burden, without regret. Do not think small of the acts you do for your family. Waking up early to earn a halal income, struggling day and night to provide a home, teaching your children the Quran, spending moments in dua for their safety. These are among the greatest acts of worship. Every sacrifice you make for them with sincerity is counted as worship. And when you do this, you are not only protecting your family in this world, you are planting seeds for the hereafter, where you will be reunited with those you love under the mercy of Allah. Remember that charity begins at home. Begin with your family, with your parents, with your spouse, with your children. Do not let the world praise you for what your family cries about in silence. Let them feel your kindness before strangers do. Let them know your generosity before the world does, because in the end, when all the people disappear, it is your family who will stand with you, and it is your family who will testify to how you treated them. Allah loves when you protect and support those under your care, and the Prophet has reminded us that the best of us are those who are best to our families. So give to the world when you can, but never at the cost of your home. True righteousness begins where your family feels safe, loved and honored, for that is the circle Allah has entrusted to you. Never empower oppressors with your kindness, because the moment you give strength to injustice, you are no longer innocent in that oppression. Islam does not call us to kindness without direction, nor to generosity without discernment. Allah has commanded us to stand firmly for justice, even if it be against ourselves, against our families, or against those we love. This is a powerful reminder that kindness cannot exist at the expense of truth. When you help someone who spreads harm, who abuses their power, who mistreats others, your kindness is no longer kindness. It becomes an instrument of their wrongdoing. And on the day of judgment, you will not only be asked about what you gave, but also about whom you gave it to and what your generosity was used for. Too many times, people disguise oppression under the cover of need. They cry for your help, they ask for your support, but deep down you know that their actions cause harm. Perhaps they use what you give to exploit others. Perhaps they use your mercy to continue in arrogance. Perhaps they demand your loyalty, not for the sake of truth, but to justify their injustice. If you agree, if you enable them, if you hand over your kindness to strengthen their hand, then you have stood against the very justice Allah commands. You may think you are showing compassion, but in reality, you are supporting tyranny. The Quran warns us, do not incline toward those who do wrong, lest the fire touch you. Reflect on these words. Allah is not only condemning the oppressors themselves, but also those who lean towards them, those who support them, those who empower them even indirectly. To incline towards oppression, even with a smile, even with a hand of support, even with silence, is a betrayal of the truth. Because oppression survives not only by the strength of the oppressor, but also by the silence and compliance of those who enable them. If you see someone misusing others, taking advantage of the weak, and they turn to you for help, pause. Ask yourself, will my kindness be a shield for the oppressed, or will it be a weapon for the oppressor? True mercy requires courage. It requires you to stand up and say no, even when it is difficult, even when people accuse you of being harsh, even when your refusal brings you criticism. Because Allah is not watching how people perceive you, He is watching whether you protect justice or betray it. Remember, the Prophet Muhammad was the most merciful of all mankind, yet his mercy was never given at the cost of justice. He showed compassion to the poor, to the weak, to the orphans, to the widows, but when it came to the oppressors, he stood firm. He never enabled their arrogance, never allowed their wrongdoing to be excused in the name of kindness. This is true balance, mercy for the oppressed, firmness against the oppressor, because mercy without justice is not mercy, it is injustice disguised. Sometimes we are tempted to remain neutral, to stay silent, to keep the peace by not confronting those who do wrong. But silence in the face of oppression is not neutrality, it is complicity. If someone is oppressing and you have the ability to withhold your help, then withholding is itself an act of justice. You may feel guilty for not extending your kindness, but guilt is misplaced when your refusal is protecting others from harm. In truth, the greater sin would be to empower a tyrant with your mercy. There are moments in life when saying no is the highest form of righteousness. When you stand before someone powerful, someone demanding, someone who wants to misuse your kindness to hurt others, your refusal becomes a shield for the weak. It is an act of worship, a testimony of your sincerity to Allah. Because you have chosen His command over the approval of people, and this choice is never easy, but it is in those moments that your faith is tested, not when you give blindly, but when you have the courage to protect justice, even against pressure. Do not let anyone deceive you by saying that kindness means helping everyone, no matter what. Allah has made it clear that you are not to cooperate in sin or aggression. That is not kindness, that is betrayal. Your heart must remain soft for the weak, but firm against the arrogant. Your hands must open for those in need, but close against those who harm. Your mercy must be a healing balm, not a weapon in the hands of an oppressor. Think of the day of judgment when every action will be weighed. Imagine standing before Allah and being asked, why did you give your help to someone who spread injustice? Why did you empower their arrogance with your generosity? Why did you stay silent when your refusal could have protected the weak? What answer will you give? On that day, the praise of people will not matter. Their approval will not save you. Only Allah's pleasure will matter. When you refuse to help an oppressor, you may feel alone, you may feel attacked, you may feel criticized. But remember, Allah is with those who stand for justice. He sees the difficulty, He sees the sacrifice, He sees the courage. And He promises that those who stand firmly for truth will never be abandoned. So hold your ground and trust that your firmness is mercy in itself. Because by not enabling oppression, you are preserving justice for all. Your kindness is a precious gift. Do not place it in the wrong hands. Do not let it become a tool of destruction. Use it to uplift, to heal, to support the righteous, to strengthen the oppressed. And when faced with an oppressor, let your refusal be your act of mercy. Stand for justice, even if it means withholding help. For Allah loves those who protect truth above all. Guard yourself from burnout and guilt, because no matter how much you give, no matter how much you sacrifice, you will never be able to save everyone. Allah has not placed that responsibility upon your shoulders. You are a servant of Allah, not the savior of mankind. To try to carry every burden, to attempt to fix every problem, to exhaust yourself for every demand, it will only leave you broken, drained, and far from the balance that Islam teaches. The deen is not meant to crush you, it is meant to bring you peace. And peace comes when you remember that Allah does not look at the quantity of your giving, but at the purity of your intention. Sometimes your heart may ache when you see so many people in need, so many struggles around you, so many calls for help. You want to answer all of them, but you cannot. And when you cannot, guilt creeps in. You feel as though you have failed, as though you are not doing enough, as though Allah will not be pleased with you because your hands could not reach everyone. But this is a deception of Shaitan. Allah has never asked you to save the world. He has asked you to do your best with sincerity, with wisdom, and with balance. If you help one person sincerely for his sake, it may outweigh 1,000 acts of rushed, careless giving. The Prophet Muhammad himself did not meet every need, did not answer every call, did not give endlessly until there was nothing left. He gave with wisdom, with balance, with care. He knew that true mercy does not come from destroying oneself. Mercy comes from consistency, from protecting one's own heart and strength so that it can continue to give in the long run. Burning yourself out is not an act of worship. It is a way of silencing your ability to continue in goodness. Islam calls for moderation in all things, and that includes your kindness, your generosity, and your service to others. Remember that your first responsibility is to Allah, and Allah loves those who worship Him in balance. He does not want you to collapse under the weight of burdens you cannot carry. He does not want you to neglect your health, your family, your worship, and your peace just to appear as though you are endlessly giving. If your acts of kindness strip you of your own well-being, if your generosity leaves your own home empty, if your service makes you bitter, exhausted, and resentful, then it is no longer true kindness. It is imbalance, and Islam is never about imbalance. You cannot pour from an empty cup. If you exhaust yourself, if you burn yourself out, how will you continue to give? How will you continue to stand in prayer? How will you continue to smile at others? How will you continue to be a source of light when your own light has gone out? Protecting your strength is not selfishness. It is wisdom. It is mercy. Because when you take care of yourself for the sake of Allah, you are protecting your ability to continue serving Him with consistency. Sometimes you will have to say no, and that no may weigh heavy on your heart. But remember that Allah knows your intention. If you are saying no because you are guarding your balance, because you are protecting your family, because you are saving your energy to fulfill your obligations properly, then Allah will reward you for that restraint. You do not need to carry guilt for what you cannot do. You only need to carry sincerity for what you are able to do. Allah looks at the purity of your heart. He knows if your refusal comes from laziness or from wisdom. He knows if your silence comes from arrogance or from exhaustion. He knows what no one else can see, and He rewards accordingly. So do not measure your worth by the number of people you help, but by the sincerity and purity of what you do for His sake. One small act of kindness done with a pure heart can outweigh countless acts done for recognition or out of guilt. Balance is mercy. The Quran and the Sunnah emphasize moderation again and again. Even in acts of worship, moderation is required. The Prophet cautioned his companions not to overburden themselves, not to take on more than they could handle. He said that the most beloved deeds to Allah are those done consistently, even if small. This is the essence of mercy: consistency, balance, sincerity. The same applies to your kindness and generosity. Better to help in small, steady ways that you can sustain than to exhaust yourself with grand gestures that you cannot maintain. And remember, Allah is Al-Rahman, the most merciful. He does not burden a soul beyond what it can bear. If you feel overwhelmed, it is because you are placing burdens on yourself that He has not asked of you. His mercy is greater than your guilt. His understanding is greater than your exhaustion. He knows your limits. He knows your struggles. He knows the intentions you hold deep inside your heart. Place your trust in Him and let go of the guilt that Satan whispers to you. Guard your heart, guard your peace, guard your balance. Do what you can with sincerity and leave the rest to Allah. You were not created to save everyone. You were created to worship Him, to walk in His path, to give where you can, and to trust Him with what you cannot. And when you protect your balance, you are not only protecting yourself, you are protecting the quality of your worship, the sincerity of your giving, and the mercy of your intentions. You cannot save everyone, but you can remain sincere with Allah. And sincerity is greater than quantity, for it is the key that opens the doors of His mercy. Balance is mercy, and Allah loves those who live in mercy. Wisdom is greater than blind generosity, because not every act of giving brings about goodness, and not every helping hand uplifts the one who receives it. Islam does not call us to pour out endlessly without thought, nor does it ask us to allow ourselves to be used or to strengthen the hands of those who harm. Rather, it teaches us to give with insight, with patience, and with trust in Allah, knowing that true kindness is not in the act itself, but in its effect, in its sincerity, and in its alignment with justice. There are times when you may feel the urge to give simply because your heart is soft, because your emotions are stirred, because you want to silence the guilt within you. But giving without wisdom can be dangerous. To feed an oppressor is to strengthen his hand in wrongdoing. To aid someone in their arrogance is to fuel their pride. To support without insight is to risk becoming part of harm rather than healing. And so Allah reminds us again and again in the Quran to act with ilm, with knowledge, with patience, with reflection. Because generosity without wisdom is not generosity. It can be negligence. The Prophet Muhammad was the most generous of all, yet his giving was always guided by wisdom. He gave to some and withheld from others. He knew when charity would soften a heart and when it would encourage misuse. He understood that kindness must be balanced with justice. This is why his generosity uplifted and never destroyed, healed and never harmed. It was generosity rooted in insight, not in blind emotion. This is the model for us. Sometimes people will make you feel guilty if you do not give them what they want. They may call you harsh, they may call you unkind, they may say you are not merciful. But remember, mercy is not always in saying yes. Sometimes the greatest mercy is in saying no. If giving will harm them, if giving will be misused, if giving will enable injustice, then wisdom demands restraint. Allah looks at the intention, the thought, the sincerity behind your choice, not simply the act itself. When you give with wisdom, you are not just feeding a body, you are feeding a soul. You are giving in a way that uplifts without corrupting, that heals without enabling harm. Even if your giving is small, if it is guided by wisdom, it will carry far greater weight in the sight of Allah than endless acts done blindly. This is why the Quran speaks of giving in secret, of giving in ways that purify, of giving that is thoughtful and intentional. It is not about being seen, nor about silencing guilt. It is about aligning with the mercy and justice of Allah. True kindness uplifts without being misused. It builds without breaking. It strengthens without corrupting. And to reach that level of kindness, you must pause and ask, will this giving bring the person closer to Allah? Will it help them rise in dignity, or will it keep them dependent, careless, or arrogant? Will it bring justice, or will it support oppression? These are questions that wisdom demands you ask before your hand opens. Sometimes wisdom will tell you to give less than you feel. Sometimes it will tell you to wait. Sometimes it will tell you to channel your generosity into another direction where it will bring true benefit. This patience is not coldness. It is mercy guided by insight, and Allah loves when His servants act with patience and wisdom because it reflects trust in Him. It means you are not giving just to satisfy yourself, but to truly bring about goodness that He is pleased with. Remember that Shaitan plays both sides. He whispers to withhold when giving is good, and he whispers to give recklessly when wisdom demands restraint. Guard your heart from both traps. Seek refuge in Allah through dua, asking Him to guide your giving, to purify your intention, to direct your generosity where it will bring light, not darkness. With dua and tawakkul, even your smallest act of charity can ripple in ways unseen, while blind giving without trust and insight may vanish without blessing. The Quran reminds us, indeed, Allah does not love the extravagant. 7:31. This does not only mean extravagance in wealth, but also in giving without thought, in wasting kindness where it is misused. Balance is the essence of our deen, and balance is the essence of wisdom. When you give with balance, with thought, with care, you are following the path of the Prophet and reflecting the mercy of Allah in its truest form. So let your generosity be guided by wisdom. Let your kindness be thoughtful, intentional, and rooted in trust in Allah. Do not let guilt push you into blind giving, and do not let fear stop you from wise generosity. Instead, walk the middle path of insight, where every act is weighed, every hand extended is purposeful, and every kindness uplifts without being misused. True generosity is not about how much you give, but about how wisely and sincerely you give for the sake of Allah. Wisdom is greater than blind generosity because wisdom protects kindness, preserves mercy, and ensures that your giving is a source of light in this world and a source of reward in the hereafter. May Allah protect your heart, guide your giving, and fill your life with mercy and wisdom. Until we meet again, stay blessed, stay balanced, and always trust Allah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.